everybody hear me? Yeah, hi. Thank you for coming. I'm Jamie Weintraub, one of the event managers at Chainlink Labs. I see a lot of familiar faces, which is great. Some new faces. Either way, thanks a lot for coming. We're going to kick off this conversation all around NFTs and community building. I'll introduce our panelists. We have Swan Sit, the Forbes dubbed queen of Clubhouse. Adrian Baschuk, the CCO and founding member of Ethernity Chain. And Chris Daniels, the founder of the Shrimp Society. I'm going to kick it off with a bit of an icebreaker. What is everybody wearing in the metaverse?
Nothing? No, wait. Actually, I thought it was an Oscar de la Renta gown because I can't afford them in real life, so there's a chance I can afford them in the metaverse. But if anyone's ever worn a corset bustier, it is really uncomfortable. My metaverse avatar can be in all the pain that she wants.
Boom. At Ethernity, we're actually just releasing our sandbox build-outs. You'll see a whole integration with all our licensing rights and IPs. Tommy, our art director, is here if anyone's building in the metaverse or otherwise. So we're wearing jerseys from some of our IP and rights collectibles, like the Dallas Cowboys with Dak Prescott, some footballers like Luis Suarez. So jerseys for now and a lot more later.
Nice. I think I'm stuck in the Solana Portals metaverse, and it's glitching my whole computer out. So I need to switch over to yours. My avatar's wearing a blue shirt, but he would be wearing the new shrimp merch if I could get it in the metaverse. I got to make an NFT.
Show it off, but you got to show the back. There we go. Yeah. Boom.
That was a way better answer than I expected. I may have to get a corset for myself in the metaverse. Okay, so to kick things off on a high level, NFTs have sort of altered the relationship, right, between creators, artists, and the people that appreciate their work, their fans. Why do you think this is, and how is that relationship going to continue to change moving forward?
The first piece of it is patronage. When you like an artist in art or in music, you go through generally a middleman, like a recording label or an art gallery. But now it's truly D2C. It's a direct relationship between artists and the consumers. And it's also consumers to consumers, right? Because before you might have bought a piece from somebody in a gallery and you have no idea who the other people are who are fans of that artist. Now with Discord communities, even Twitter followers, you actually know who the other people are who share that interest. So this technology, I mean, the concept of D2C is not new. We've just never had the avenues to find people because we didn't have the transparency. And blockchain, because it's all visible, you can actually find those connections, either artist to fan or fan to fan.
Very true. And take it from Swan, she's an expert. I mean, came from the worlds of Nike and big brands and more. I myself was a long time EP and producer in the content space. I would do broadcast series, doc series. I worked for every major conglomerate and network, from CNN to Universal to Disney to CNBC, where I was running the CNBC crypto show. And we always had to sell our wares. We all had to, create this, original content and IP and try and sell it up the food chain to the bosses at the top. And it was like a 10% win ratio. And that was good as an independent production company, not wanting to be in-house and under contract by some of these networks. So NFTs we saw as the disruption of the disintermediaries and being able to sell directly to consumers and fans and brands alike. And we've seen that, first and foremost in the art space, because we always saw NFTs disrupting overall content. It started with 2D mimetic JPEG images because that was easiest, and then 3D high-end collectibles, and now fashion, gaming, and soon TV and film, etc. And it's all people like us, people like in this room, disrupting.
Yeah, I love analogies, and it seems like from a fandom perspective, the creator, the artist, or whoever it is, instead of standing up on stage and throwing merch out or whatever it is, they're down in the pit with everybody. And the NFTs, it seems like it allows your best fans to be in the inner circle and have more input. So if if Nike puts out a new shoe, unless you were one of the 100 people that were in the survey that said you like blue or purple or whatever it was, you're not a part of it. But now brands can actually have their fans directly impact what's going into the products they're selling and create more of a circular motion in their feedback loop, where now the fans are incentivized because maybe it's tokens, maybe it's NFTs, whatever it is, maybe it's just being an early adopter of whatever it is, that it's much more that the brands and the artists are sitting with like their most core community versus just sitting outside and throwing stuff and seeing what sticks, like you were saying.
All right, so to build on that, I want to touch on how these communities have manifested for each of you, whether through your projects or through your Clubhouse and Twitter spaces. I'll start with you, Swan. I'm not sure if the audience knows, Swan has a rather impressive following on Clubhouse. I want to ask you how that started and what really piqued your interest in the NFT space.
All of it was sort of accidental, which just means I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But I spent most of my life in the corporate world. I was the head of digital marketing globally for Nike, Revlon, companies like Estee Lauder. So I left the corporate world a few years ago and was sitting on boards and advising, and pandemic hit. And we were all pretty isolated, and this little social audio app called Clubhouse showed up. I joined in May of 2020 when there was literally, when you'd open it during the day, it would be empty. There would be 0 people logged in. And at night, there might be 30 people. But it was a sense of community, just to not feel so alone when we're isolated during this pandemic. And I really like to mentor. And what ended up happening was as people had questions about growing their e-com business or working in the corporate world, I got to mentor at scale. So 30 people became hundreds, became thousands. And I just leveraged off of having an audience to help. And let's think, May of 2020, I started. By December, I hit 100,000 followers. And then I said, well, I have something here. I need to lean in. So I started doing a weekly room. It was simply an AMA because what got me there was helping people and answering questions. So I said, let me answer more. So it became a structured weekly regular room. I let anyone come up and ask anything they wanted. Yes, about marketing or e-commerce, but people asked me about dating as a corporate executive, freezing my eggs, sexism in the workplace. And I talked about all of it because I didn't have the guardrails that I had in the corporate world of what I couldn't talk about. And from December to May in those next 5 months, it went from 100,000 to 3 million. So it just shows the power of creating community. And the first insight I had, there's 2 that I think really locked into why I was able to lean into this phenomenon. First is that I don't call them fans or followers, I call them my community, because my weekly show was based on their questions. Yes, occasionally I had other shows where I had guests, but the weekly show that everyone showed up for was the audience. And without them, I literally wouldn't have a show because there'd be no questions. So it's not even fans and followers, it's a community and it's a reciprocal relationship. The second piece I stole from my corporate days. I got to work on things like the Colin Kaepernick campaign at Nike. Community for me is the intersection of 2 things: commonality of purpose and frequency of touch. You have to believe in the same thing and interact often enough that you feel like you're a part of the tribe. So the Women's March, a huge movement, commonality of purpose, but we did a few marches and it kind of fizzled. So I'd argue that was a movement and not a community. On the flip side, if you look at Instagram, we're on it 20 times a day. So you have frequency of touch. And I'd argue there's sub-communities like food or travel or sport, but as a whole, it's not a community. You're not going to Instagram's Instagram account to see what Instagram's doing. You don't care. So you have to have both things. You care about the same thing and you meet frequently enough to engage with them. And then the third piece that's so Web3 that I think didn't exist in Web2 is letting the community participate. Because in Web2, it was brands broadcasting. You could comment once in a while, but it wasn't a conversation. But when you have NFT communities where your consumers are also your shareholders who are defining the culture, you can't help but let them be part of the conversation. So those insights, whether it's an NFT project, whether it was my Clubhouse community, I think that's actually the future of how communities are going to be built. It's no longer in the hands of gatekeepers like social media platforms or art galleries. It's going to be by the people, for the people, and we finally have the technology to do it.
I mean, that's a wrap. Give it up for Swan, everybody. Thank you all for coming out. There's nothing else that we can really add to that. That was a masterclass in community, marketing, everything. So cheers and happy hours over. Really, give it up for Swan.
Yeah,
Right?
that was great.
And, but I'm serious. And take those notes. Commonality of mentoring, or what did you say? I know. Commonality of purpose and frequency of touch. Really mark those down. Anybody, put them in your notes because it's huge. I also like to use the Chainlink example. Give it up for Chainlink, everybody. Number one.
I'm gonna Adrian, I'm going to let you moderate if you want.
No, I'm just saying that's a real deal stuff. Chainlink, you have the Chainlink Marines, right? I mean, you got guys wearing T-shirts here. I was an early holder back in 2017, and I had the fortune of kind of traveling around the world, covering all the different conferences for years in the crypto space with CNBC, and we'd meet Sergey at the conferences. We're at ETH DevCon when they first unveiled their smart contract codes to the developers, and the Ethereum developers crowded a room 5 times the size of this, overpacked, like packed out the doors. People were like sitting in the corners with their laptops, these Ethereum dev coders learning the open source Chainlink smart contract code. So you had this buy-in from developers. That's why I think Ethereum has been so successful, the community effect around developers. And then those developers developed NFTs, being able to build on top of blockchain and the Ethereum network. As I always say, NFTs disrupting content overall. So if you look at that community building around Chainlink, a token, of course, but also around its technology, the Chainlink Marines have given way to a lot of community around NFTs. Luckily at Ethernity, we have a token, for example, the ERN token. You have both holders and transactors on a tokenized, gated community around a gathering force like content. So it creates this feedback loop where people want to, rep the merchandise or buy in on sales or whatnot. So there's multiple layers of participation, as you say, and that's where you really get a sense of the community around NFTs rather than just a top-down approach like traditional brands.
Yeah, I was just spacing out thinking about that scene you just painted of that, because that is community where people are drawn to something and they want to be there on their own free time. They're not paid. They're not getting anything out of it. They're just interested and passionate about something. And now with the NFTs, there's opportunities or tokens or whatever is going on in Web3. There's the opportunity to have upside in it. With the Shrimp Society, it's kind of an interesting, or just any community, I guess. It's an interesting dilemma where you want owners in your community, you want community members to be owners and to have upside, but also the kind of like financial pressures of having a token and just focusing on that changes the incentives of why people join things or why people do things. When someone just wants to go, I don't know, play pickup basketball and go have a good time with their friends, but then you introduce a token that says, hey, every time you play pickup basketball, you can get $5 or whatever it is. It changes some of the incentives, which is really interesting and kind of like a part of NFT stuff that people aren't thinking about so much. But anyway, to your point, Jamie, the Shrimp started as a community first and foremost, and the NFT was a way for us to accomplish what we wanted to do, which is very...
Chris, if you don't mind, could you just give some context to the audience in case they don't know what the mission of the Shrimp Society is?
Yeah, we're a seafood cocktail sauce company, and no, I'm just kidding. Nothing to do with actual shrimp. We're a community of entrepreneurs here in Miami. We got started as a dinner series in 2017, a place for early stage startup founders and builders to get together. In Miami, there really was no kind of early stage builder culture. And so that's really what we set out to do. And so we had about 80 early stage startup founders in our community. Once we kind of went more like public with it, starting in 2021. And then in November, we did an NFT on Solana because we kind of had this broad audience that didn't necessarily fit early stage startup founder that lived in Miami that, had revenue or had fundraised. And we realized, pretty quickly it takes a whole village to raise a startup, right? Not just the founder. And we wanted to bring everyone around the entrepreneurial spirit into our community. And it would have been really weird if we just said, hey, like, Venmo this person, or how are we going to finance all this stuff, or how are we going to give people the opportunity to be a part of something other than just sign in and here's your email address. And there really wasn't a way for us to do that was fun. All the Web 2 stuff felt really boring, like the forums and just traditional memberships and paying to be a member, and it just felt like old school kind of country club membership, and I didn't want that. And then with the NFT, we were able to say how now our members can be owners too. And if you like what's going on here, you can join at any time. You can leave at any time, and hopefully your work will help grow the project and grow the community and things like that. The more we work together, the bigger the visibility of the project, the bigger it grows, right? And that's just not possible if we're just doing what's your email address and here you go, you're on an email list now to get to get events or whatever it is. So it's interesting. I think a lot of NFT projects just shout community, 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 but they're not centered around anything. They're centered around making money. They're centered around pumping this token, which is fine. You could totally be centered around that. That is not like, I guess, a bad thing to be centered around. But it's really interesting when projects and communities have like real core communities. It's a total difference because people care about something more intrinsically to the actual community than just token go up, which is a big part of it.
Yeah, that's great. I was saying this to you before, Chris. I think it's really impressive. I'm not from Miami. I live in New York. And when I started, thinking about hosting meetups down here through Chainlink, I was like, okay, I need to get my finger on the pulse. What's going on in the Miami tech scene? And everyone I was talking to was saying Shrimp Society, Shrimp Society, Shrimp Society. And I was like, okay, I guess these are the guys. So I had to bring Chris on.
Appreciate it.
Okay, my next point, and I think, Adrian, you sort of touched on this a bit when you were talking about the Chainlink example. Open source is a core ideal in Web3. Do you think that it's actually practical? Is this really just something that everyone's leaned into because it sort of fits the ethos of Web3, or does it add value to your community?
I mean, look, what's the number one thing that's hardest for projects and communities to find are developers. So it's like a holy grail. Like, yeah, sure, open source, but like there's a lot of new entrants into the space and there's only a select number of talented, skilled individuals that are developers and are actually using the technology. So one thing is the hype and the mass market retail appeal. The other is the building blocks. And so we spend a lot of time, of course, trying to meet and uncover talent, hiring talent. So you're only as open source as the talent who you bring on, and it's still a limited select few. So it's not like everybody can just, write in Python or React or otherwise. How many are developers here? All right, you're all hired. Let's go. We need, everybody needs developers. Who needs developers? Raise your hand. Who's looking for developers? Boom. So afterwards, you guys will go talk over pizza and beers. Boom, you're hired. Done. But I'm sure they're going to say, oh, no, we have way too many inbounds anyway. So that's just the way it is right now. I think open source also just is an ideal of NFTs and metaverse and blockchain is that anyone can create and spin up a project with the right amount of community support and development behind it. So we're always striving for that. And I see a very fruitful future for a lot of people that otherwise would have not gained access to empowering and making better their lives via technology.
Yeah, I mean, I think open source as a technology is one discussion, but open source as an ethos is part of the endemic culture of Web3, right? Not only borrowing ideas from each other's projects, but within a project, if you do own the license or fully own the IP to your NFT, in a way that's open source because you can go create lunchboxes or t-shirts off of it. So I think, in some context, I might be good at marketing. I'm terrible at following instructions. How I got into NFTs was I was on Clubhouse a lot. Clubhouse, there was a moment for NFTs about a year ago. And so because I had an audience, projects were asking me to host rooms. And so many NFT projects are based in marketing and community, which is what I used to do. So I've had the privilege of working with like Adidas and Bored Apes on their Twitter Spaces, the official launch, Adidas and Prada, Cool Cats, Boss Beauties, et cetera. So on the back end, I talked to a lot of these projects about like what is core to you and what's actually owned by the community and what do you learn from everyone else. And gone are the days where brands have to hold their brand ethos so tight that people can't participate, right? If somebody decides to put an ape on an evening gown, is anyone going to stop them? Like, gone are the days where we have an opinion over what somebody wants to do, because if that is truly distributed, then it's yours and it's what you want to do with it. And so these projects that like, it's just a really tough balance between being closed enough, and I shouldn't say the word closed, defined enough that you have that commonality of purpose, but you just have to let go of that baby, right? It's not yours. If it's a 10,000 piece collection, what, do you still hold 100 in your treasury? 9,900 of them are no longer yours. And the sooner brands understand and these projects understand that it's no longer theirs, it actually gets richer with people's layers on top of it, all the better. I just think that it's a tough shift because I don't think the technology is ready to be fully leveraged as open source. And we use Web 2 tools that are not open source to power Web 3, like OpenSea and Discord. So we're going to have some, I think, growing pains as we figure out what this future looks like.
Yeah, to the open source, I think it's a great point. NFTs are open source, right? If someone jumps in the shrimp Discord right now and buys 100 shrimp and says, "Hey, we want pizza at every single meetup," now we're talking about that. Now we got to figure that out. Like you can have an immediate voice, and I think something that's really interesting with the open source, I guess, kind of movement as well, is that it's very much a meritocracy where the best ideas, the best inventions, the best build outs, new apps that are built on top of things, they're going to win and they're going to take off because they're useful. And you don't have the traditional kind of like one person says we should do this and this is their vision and now everyone's going to build for that. It really is more of, again, getting back to that, sitting down with everybody and saying who's got great ideas, what can we do here, and then kind of using the community to do that. One of the best analogies for I'm gonna keep using analogies till someone stops me, but one of the best analogies for community is that kind of community managers or leaders, they're like a sailboat. They're meant to steer, but the wind in the sails is the people, right? And so same thing with open source. To your point, like you can help steer and set the foundation and thing, but I think communities where it's like overbearingly turning and being driven by a small group is not kind of the future and not where you want to be. Instead, it's getting feedback from everyone. That's the whole point of being in a community and not a company, is that everyone has a seat at the table.
I like that analogy. I like the sailboat analogy.
Agreed. My next question focuses on legacy brands. I think this is a great question for you, Swan. You touched on it. Bored Apes and Adidas did a collab. Prada has touched the space. Coca-Cola, Budweiser. Do you feel that this is an attention grab, or is there real intent to get in Web3 and stay?
I think it's well-intentioned, but it's not aligned with what the NFT marketplace is right now. Now, it doesn't mean that won't be the case, but I think anyone who's been in NFTs for about 6 months or a year has seen a change, right? It started with community, but as we saw certain projects moon in value, it's much more about the flip. So I think the brands coming out with collectibles is just a little off sync with the majority of motivations, which is asset collection and appreciation right now. That said, I think there's absolutely a future for brands you love and collecting things from them. I don't know if Budweiser would have been my first choice, but from their first launch of the Budweiser image to the second launch, which is every NFT was attached to an emerging artist, that's the equivalent of betting on a rookie card for an artist to be famous someday and you had their OGs. So I think they're getting closer. I think what's much more interesting for brands is utility with the company and the consumer, not just selling a collectible. So take this as an example at Nike. If you put an NFC chip in the shoe when it's coming off the assembly line, right, the same technology that we do for Apple Pay, you know where it was made. We can even log the environmental footprint. We can log the artisan who worked on that shoe that day, and that data is there. Now you follow it through the supply chain. Oftentimes things get lost, things fall off the back of the truck and end up in the back of somebody's trunk and they're selling this Jordan and you're like, is this even real? Well, not only do we know which shoe fell off which truck and which distributors to blame, you know it's an authentic shoe because there's a chip in it. Take it to retailers. Sometimes you go buy at Foot Locker instead of buying directly from Nike. Nike has no idea who buys their products at Foot Locker. Foot Locker is not sharing that information because they'll lose the customer. So now Nike has a better view, even if it's through its distribution partners, who's buying the product. One step further, the resellers. So there's a sneakers app in sneaker collection culture. Nike sneakers app, every Saturday morning, 7 a.m. Pacific, they do a hot shoe drop. Now, it's like this whole meme, right? When people lose, they take an L, and there's all these funny memes about people jumping off of buildings because their lives are so terrible because they get an L. But 99.9% of people don't get that shoe, that hot drop shoe. So, if you have means, you're not getting up at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning to try on 3 devices with your good bots trying to get the shoe. You'll wake up 5 hours later, you'll go on StockX or GOAT and one of the resellers who authenticate the product, but also charge you 10x the price, but your time is money. So you'll be willing to pay 10x. Nike also has no idea who those people are. So imagine if I could look in a wallet and be like, wow, this person has 30 pairs of rare Jordans in their wallet. I have no idea who they are. Let me airdrop a token into the wallet, and then Jamie can decide, do I want to tell Nike who I am and disclose, and then let them earn my information, right? Then you can go on pass down shoes. You can link it to like workout apps because Nike has a running and training app. If you linked it to the shoe, you'd know how often people are running and reward them and on and on and on. I think collectibles are fine. It's great that brands are well-intentioned and learning. The future is, I think, understanding how product intersects life and how we reward consumers for being customers of ours, regardless of what channel they buy through.
I gotta follow that up. Switch seats, buddy. Masterclass by Swan, and that's good.
I pay him for good PR.
She's great. She's great. What we've seen at Ethernity, we've collaborated with NFL players, with Shaq, Messi, the U.S. Space Force. We like to say we're the first government-approved NFT platform and marketplace. We did like 8 augmented reality collectibles with the U.S. Space Force, which is really cool. We have a bunch of upcoming integrations with entertainment studios and otherwise. We've definitely focused on licensing rights, notable figures, and IPs. So yes, again, this NFT market has shifted with ever-changing winds over the course of the last year. First, it was 2D mimetic JPEG images, then 3D, high-end NFT art, and now, as you see, utility baked in, community stuff, physical collectibles, real-world experiences. Look what Doodles did in Austin for South by. I mean, it was incredible stuff. So, with the brands, it's another way to engage community and consumers, and it's going to be super high-end and technical the more and deeper we get into this. But again, at the very base layer, in Ethernity, we wanted to start with individuals, right? Because crypto, the ethos is the individual over the state, right? So we see the same with creators. When we collaborate with artists, we're not just like, we don't have a production line of in-house artists just churning out NFTs, one after the other. We're collaborating with top name individuals and always looking for best talent, because I think product and talent really can thrive in new, unfounded ways that the gatekeepers of legacy media institutions couldn't. So brands have to find those individuals and those rare talents to really thrive in this industry, and that's what we're really excited about doing. We had like 3 calls today with artists in different small indie studios, developing stuff in Decentraland or developing apps and whatnot. We met with a skating AR company that's doing like videos of skate tricks in iconic locations, and then you turn that trick into an NFT. It's incredible stuff. They're at FTX Crypto Bahamas right now, like getting funded and all that. So there's the power of the individual first, and then the brand second.
I think on the topic of kind of big brands in the NFT space, I have two hot takes, maybe hot takes. I think a lot of brands are that meme where they like slap the car hood and they're like, put an NFT on it, and they just want to put an NFT on like every experience and say it's a collectible. Every time you go to Target, oh, that was a unique Target, here's an NFT. And I think what the reality is that people keep tickets from whatever epic, playoff basketball game because it was an incredible experience and they went with their best friend and they won in overtime. They don't care about the actual tickets, the memory behind it. And I think a lot of brands, if you're going to do some sort of collectible NFT, I think the majority of people that are taking that are saying, okay, well, I'm going to take this NFT because it's free or whatever it's given to me, and hopefully it's worth more, basically because it's novel, right? Because we're still in early stages of NFT, and maybe this is the first Coachella NFT. You have a thought on that? Oh, no. And I think the brands that are doing it well are looking at the utility of it, not from just a collectible, but what can this do? How can this bring you closer into kind of the fold with the brand? So that's kind of one take. I feel like the collectibles from big brands is obviously they can make money, right? They have so much mass that they're gonna make money if they sell some sort of collectible NFT. But I think the onus is on them to justify what is the experience, what is like. Why do I even want this? Because I don't know, has anyone, I'm sure, heard of like POAPs and things like that? Like I've gotten a ton of them from going to like webinars or whatever, and I'm kind of like, that webinar wasn't that great. I don't know why I want this. So I think we're moving on from that. The other spicy take is for any brand that's trying to manage an NFT community. It is an absolute nightmare trying to figure out who everyone is and have like a traditional kind of marketing approach to a relationship with your member. So for example, with I have no idea how the big companies do this. If you're building a company that's like the Web3 CRM, like I will invest all of my life savings into your company. But for the shrimp, for example, we have, someone's Discord name, which is basically anonymous, right? Crypto person 123. We have their Solana wallet address. We have their actual NFT, which is their membership. We have their name, which, in Web3 is like people like the anonymity. That's cool. Same thing with email, where they live, like getting data on people and then getting that to like, okay, this is a member profile. And then saying, okay, how can we have this communication? How can we send them emails so they know about events or what's going on? And then if the wallet changes, right? If someone's like, burner wallet, I'm going to move my shrimp here. I'm going to do this. Then it's very hard to manage kind of the customer or member relationship. I have no idea how the big brands are doing it because it's all kind of push right now. Like put it out on Twitter, put it out on an email if you can get it. And the onus is on everybody to opt in. But some people don't want that, right? You see it with Discord with like millions of messages, announcements. I'm sure everyone has 200 plus notifications on Discord that they're not looking at. They're just announcements. It's all push, push, push. So I don't know who's going to like solve that or how it's going to be solved, but I will give you all of my money if you can solve it.
So I work with a company that has Web2 CRM, but you can add your wallet to it. So it's a little baby step. It doesn't solve all the finding where things go, but for companies who want to come in, and if you're in Web3 and they offer you the right incentive, because you mentioned this before, incentives, right? With the right incentives, people are motivated to do things. If a brand gives you enough incentive to say, this is my wallet, then it's hopefully a symbiotic relationship. So it's a baby step in that direction.
I want to ask you for that.
For my next question, I want to ask if you've considered dynamic NFTs. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term. Using Chainlink data feeds, you essentially can allow your NFT to be upgradable through provably reliable data. For example, we just did a drop last week with the NBA where all you have to do is pay for the price to mint and you'd be dropped a card of an NBA player in the playoffs. And that card will then update based on how far they go in the playoffs and the achievements they unlock. If they have an MVP in the finals or something like that. Right? In the same sense, I think that in the traditional art scene and even in NFTs, there's a place for the original in the collection, right? Do we see a dynamic NFT having a place aside from athletes and upgrading with their stats? Is there somewhere else where this can take form?
We've it's muted. There we go. We've 100% used Chainlink. I mean, we've worked hand in hand with your guys' developers. So at Ethernity, we did sports NFT trading card collectibles with the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott, Zeke Elliott, Luis Suarez, Modric, where you could see based on gameplay, their stats would change and the cards would change from like gold to silver to bronze or otherwise. Or no, it was on fire red, blue, just regular, and then icy white if it was a bad day. So we've definitely used it hand in hand. I can speak to sports. I know artists like Daniel Arsham, for example, hometown Miami artist who came up in the scene here in Wynwood, was one of the leading artists to do artwork with art blocks that was changing by the season. Literally, it was like a tree and it would change by the season. You can still have it today, and now it's in full bloom in springtime right now. So it's a lovely time out. And then in winter time, it would go icy cold. So it's happening, and big proponents of it. And I think there's a big future in it as well.
Yeah, anyone who knows me knows I'm obsessed with this NFT game called Step-In. Does anyone here do Step-In? Yeah. All right. Awesome.
It's the new hot thing.
Yeah, it's awesome. So basically, it's an NFT project on Solana where you get these shoes, these different sneakers, and when you walk, they kind of have like almost like a white labeled Nike Run app, Run Club app in there, where when you run, if you go for a run right now, it'll track you, and then it'll give you some of their token called GST. And it's amazing because you can level up your shoe, right? You can get different gems for different efficiencies that make you earn more on that run, or resilience. You have to constantly be repairing your shoe. They have all these really cool mechanics. I haven't seen an NFT game that is this like well thought out or stimulating. So it's really, really cool. And the concept of having, one, like a main NFT that you continuously level up and add on to. And then if you play the game and you level up your shoe from a 1 to a level 30, now it's worth 20 grand and you can sell it, right? And you played the game versus, just getting like whatever 1,000 NFTs that are all worth a dollar, right? It's more kind of in line with how people spend time and things, and I think we're going to start seeing more of that kind of dynamic NFTs adding on to this NFT. Your NFT is growing with you, and you're putting in time, energy, capital to build it up. That's the one I've seen do it the best right now.
If any hacker devs want to team up and hack the running,
Yeah,
sure, we're in.
Why don't you just pay someone to run for you?
I've thought about it.
Right. Or we could hack it. No, dynamic NFTs are game changing. If it's an art or piece of art or collectible, that's one thing. But humans change and evolve. And if we talk about wanting to create community and incentivize behaviors, you have to reward for it. So right now it's being done, I guess, with additional airdrops, things like that. But that's going to get really cumbersome the larger you scale and the more diverse your community. So having things that grow and change with it that also tie back to the behaviors that you want to be creating incentives around. I mean, humans are disgustingly predictable, right? It is really simple. That's what marketing is. Sometimes people think marketing is the ad that they see on TV, but it starts way upstream. It's product market fit. What product or service do you have, and who's going to want it, and how do you get it into their hands? And that is about innately understanding human psychology. So Jamie mentioned we did a Twitter space today. It's the 1-year anniversary of the Bored Apes. And I asked some of the oldest holders who were in the room, some who minted, some who came in pretty early, I said, what would make you sell? And what they noted was not, I'm forever an ape. Yes, they're deep in the culture, but they said every time I even think of selling, they do something, right? So now everyone's got ApeCoin. There's a metaverse coming. Now there's the thought of something in the metaverse. I forgot what the term is, but there's always something that every time there's a slight dip or they feel like people are starting to think about moving, they release something else. Right? It's the same mentality, but if your NFT changes with you, you don't have to dangle another utility. You can actually embed it in each person's individual experience. And I think that's what's going to let us do something much bigger, because an airdrop's pretty universal, but dynamic NFTs, if we can do it down to the personal level, that's game changing. That's loyalty and CRM for Web3.
You might see that on an ad for Chainlink soon. Thank you. I'm going to ask one more question because I want to give the audience some time for Q&A. Right in this room, I've been imagining the majority of us are pretty ingrained in Web3. You have a MetaMask. A lot of people like to say when you're getting started with Web3, there's sort of a trial by fire, right? You got to go through the scary aspects of a transaction taking a little longer than you want, or you have your first rug pull, or you buy something that's not quite what you thought it was, right? We're all pretty used to it, but the user experience still is tricky. How are you in your communities or with your friends or with your platforms trying to bridge this gap and make user experience easier for people to continue to onboard?
Yeah, I think Web 2.5 is a really good place to be, where you have this merge of kind of Web 2 things that work and are tried and true and people are familiar with, and then only really doing the Web 3 things where you need to, and then kind of putting that in the background. Again, for like this Step-In app, for example, great app, looks just like the Nike Run Club, looks like anybody could pick it up and use it, and then there's just one component of sending your tokens to your wallet, and I'm pretty sure when you're earning the tokens in the game, they're not the real tokens. They just cash it out and send them to your wallet address. So that's a good use case of it. I think another one is Upstream. We just launched our DAO collective on Upstream. It's a Miami company, and the onboarding was just like incredible for that, to be able to just sign up in traditional Web 2 just feels normal, feels smooth, not have to get into all the weeds of things. Your MetaMask pops right up. It's all kind of taken care of for you. I think the more we can think of what is the purpose for this app, for this thing we want to accomplish, and how much of it really needs to be in Web 3. And if we can make that part as painless as possible, or really even just behind the scenes, is the best, in my opinion. I've been burned, like you said, rugs, a million different things, and it's so hard when you go to a sketchy website and you just have no idea what's going on. And the more people can hate on like Coinbase and stuff like that because it's custodial or whatever it is, but the way that people like non-Web3 people are going to get more onboarded is kind of through these Web 2.5s that have the Web3 components a little bit hidden, a little bit more in the background. That's kind of, I guess, where the adoption is going to catch up. That doesn't mean that people in Web3 should over optimize for that instead of building really cool technology that then they can put a really nice UI on and push the things forward. But in terms of kind of just everyday thinking of family, friends, stuff like that, I think when you can give someone an app and they don't even know it's using Web3 is where we need to get to.
And I would say just going down 1, 2, 3, like easiest, middle, and then hardest. I tell friends and family, I love Coinbase actually. Ethernity, we're recently listed on Coinbase. They have their Learn and Earn program where people can learn about the tokens and get them airdrop for free. The data is like a third hold, a third buy more, and a third sell, and that creates a big pool of liquidity for the entire community. So things like Coinbase and Gemini and FTX are absolutely essential. Crypto.com as well, we listed on there, and they have a lot of essential guides and how-tos. I think secondly, what the NFT marketplace has done, we just implemented credit card buying with MoonPay. We had previous credit card providers, but now MoonPay is direct NFT buying. So when you have these crypto and blockchain processes going on in the background that aren't rocket science, and you don't need 4 wallets and 5 steps that might get stalled out and you lose your gas fees. I mean, remember when gas fees was like $300 at some point over the summer? It was crazy. And then DeFi summer 2020 when you had all the rug pulls, 2019, 2020. So that's another layer, just direct NFT credit card buying for the masses. Because one of our mission statements at Ethernity, and just mine personally, is the learning curve to get mass retail and mass users into crypto and blockchain. And I think NFTs does that for people outside of this room, for like that guy walking by, like, hey, they can get an NFT with a credit card. And thirdly, I think DeFi, implementing DeFi across NFTs is hugely important for us and other projects that I see coming. We just implemented a mystery box drop where we have 80 Satoshi Genesis cards as NFTs that you're going to be able to stake and earn yield. So instead of having to stake tokens and have all the wallet stuff, it's just taking an NFT, staking it, and there's 10 earned per day that are airdrop, but we only have 80 available to the community and put it out over the course of a year. Staking and DeFi mechanisms with something as NFTs is super interesting and something we're trying to make possible. So easy, middle, and hard.
I think it starts at the grassroots level in addition to those. I mean, Adrian's very complimentary towards me, but in reality, he's what I call a friend towards me in the space. We're friends, but he's been a mentor helping me onboard into this space. And there's something about the culture of Web3 that inherently is more educational and collaborative, and we need to lean into that. So 3 things I do are, first, just starting from the root source. If you learn something cool, go tell 5 people about it, but those 5 people can't look, act, or sound like you. Right? So not only are we growing, we're hopefully growing at the margins and people who don't look like us. That's the problem, right? Is sometimes when cool things start, like in Web 2 in the VC money, cool, great. Web 3, oh, it's different. Well, it's a different group of white dudes, but it's still white dudes, right? So first of all, it's growing, but growing with diversity and telling people who don't look like us to come be a part of this. Secondly, we do need structures. So I'm a founding member of BFF, an organization started by Britt Morin and Jamie Schmidt. But we use the platforms of people like Gwyneth Paltrow, Tyra Banks, Mila Kunis, 100 founding members, experts in their field who are basically hammering this drum of, are you crypto curious? Come in. Our broadcast for the first Zoom was 25,000 people. And we airdropped 7,000 free BFF little friendship bracelets into wallets of those people who came. Those 7,000 are each worth an ETH. No one came out of pocket for any of them. It's people who believed in the mission who then bought secondaries and wanted to be a part of the movement. Right? And then thirdly, I think it's a little broader and deeper than that. It's connecting all these pieces and providing solutions. I can sit here and talk about NFTs and apes and doodles all day. I sound like a crazy person to that guy walking down the street. Right? But when I do this talk, it's called the evolution of marketing through Web 1, 2, and 3. So I don't even talk about NFTs, but I kind of convince people like, well, Web 1, you said you'd never buy anything online. But how many times did you Uber this week? Web 2, you said you never share your own personal photos online and you don't care what influencers ate for breakfast. But Web 2, arguably, social is what kept us connected through these last 2 years. Web 3, I mean, all these people saying, I would never, I could not. What are you going to say 3 years from now? So when we seed solutions like, we came from pretty humble beginnings, and my mom doesn't actually know how old she is. She has no birth certificate. Why isn't every birth certificate on the blockchain around the world for fractions of a penny? Or people who live paycheck to paycheck, instead of waiting 2 weeks to stretch to that paycheck, why can't you get a fractional payment of your paycheck that day and buy dinner on the way home? And by the way, why can't I Venmo you money at 2 a.m, but I have to wait till the bank opens at 9 a.m. to make a wire? These are all insane things. So the more we can couch it and, yes, tell people who don't look like you, create structures, but the more we're solutions based with it, not technology based, because that's scary to most people, but we talk about solutions, then we win. I mean, one person that was head of HR in a company, I was trying to get them to understand where this could actually go with employee records. The one thing that I got her to think about was, how many times have you sat interviewing someone and you don't know if they lied about where they went to school or what job they had? Right? You're not going to fax the registrar for a transcript, which, by the way, like Harvard still makes you do. You could just have a POAP. Chris, coming back to the use of POAPs, what if there's a POAP for your 1-year anniversary at Nike or the degree that you had? So the more we can actually go from technology into solutions, I think that mass adoption will come faster.
That was excellent. I want to give the audience a chance for Q&A. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand. I'll come around with the microphone.
What are your thoughts on the possible proposal coming up for NTT, non-tradable tokens? The Harvard thing was a good example. So it's not something that has value to anybody else but you. Non-tradable tokens.
I think they're great. I mean, I don't think you should be able to trade a token that is your Harvard degree. That would be kind of weird, right? Yeah, I think it's great. There's so many use cases, and that's what I mean. Solutions-based. That is a technology solving a use case for one. And there's certain tokens you don't want people to trade. Yes, maybe it's certifications, but maybe like Chris in your Shrimp Society, suppose you decide to have an application process and you only want certain members in the community. What if it's you can only trade within a certain community, right? So I think whether it's dynamic, whether it's non-transferable, those are interesting.
If there's any other questions or comments.
Any more questions? Don't be shy. Okay. Oh, we got one in the back. I'm coming around.
So I'm just curious about economics, like that step-in exercise. You're talking from like a founder and investor standpoint. How is something like that sustainable, and like, what's the long-term revenue model for that from the founder investor?
Yeah, from Steppen, I think I've heard through the grapevine that that's something that they're figuring out. I think the market cap is like 100 million right now. They're blowing up. They have people walking all around the world and doing all this good stuff. They do have a mechanism to basically turn it down. So instead of earning $70 on a run, you could earn $7, right? So they can kind of taper that. But what I've heard through the grapevine is they're kind of like, well, if this keeps getting bigger and bigger, I know they're buying back some GST. I kind of see them doing something where they're bringing in like more hard assets that aren't just their own token to support the token price, to support the whole economics of it, whether that's, Adidas coming in and doing a custom shoe with them or whatever it is. I could see that. But that is something that people don't think about, because to get to that point where your token is blowing up and now you have hundreds of millions of dollars of market cap, it's a long road to get there, right? But from what I've heard from kind of like insiders is that they're trying to figure that out too, and that it's a challenging thing, because once it starts exploding, they can limit it, they can turn the knobs down, but at one point does it get to, what was that one? There was one project that was worth it was like $50 billion or something like ridiculous on paper. And it was just kind of obviously, there was nothing behind it.
BitConnect.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think they're working on it and trying to manage it. But my guess, what I've seen with, what is it? Like Terra and the whole Terra ecosystem, is they started buying up Bitcoin to basically provide a hard asset behind their own tokens. So I could see that as something that they're going to do.
Terra Luna, serious. We're in Seoul in South Korea when they were launching with Do Kwon and them. They'll be permissionless in West Palm too.
Yeah.
And I hope they're using Chainlink. So give it up for Chainlink.
I think there's a Web 2.5 solution to that. And you mentioned it, it's Adidas, right? So if you know people are walking, why wouldn't athletic wear companies want to contribute and make sure that their products are somewhat integrated into the system? But I could also see insurance companies, right? Because the cost of preventative healthcare is much more effective than treatment later on. Or gyms in the neighborhood that are geolocated to where you are. So it's kind of Web 2, but it's a huge source of funding, and those guys are just spending millions of dollars on Facebook ads. Much better way to reach people who are already walking.
Any more?
What do each of you think Chainlink's biggest potential value add is for the Web3 and Synergy 6?
Well, I think as an oracle, right? Chainlink started out as the oracle of price feeds, number one. So settling price feeds across all exchanges. It sucks for guys like Sang Bankman-Fried who made their riches on different gaps.
Arbitrage.
Yeah. Different arb trades. But number one is as an oracle provider, that was like sacrosanct. And I think the open source smart contract is huge as well, and what it's doing for the space on that. That's a big easy win.
Chris, I know that you're not a Chainlink user. If you feel comfortable touching.
No,
the
but
subject.
I do think, to your point, the Oracle aspect of it is really important. And if you're going to be kind of Web 2.5, that Oracle aspect is really important, whether it's, weather or sports games or whatever it is in your own community. If you want to keep inching towards that full Web 3, you're going to have something outside of it that can say like, okay, yes, this person is a member, or this event did happen, or this, whatever it is, right? There are manual inputs to it that if you're going to go fully into it and do it right, that you're going to have to incorporate. And also, I think the cross-chain thing. I think a lot of communities are going to be multi-chain. Like for us, we're on Solana. Like our NFT project's on Solana. We're all in on it. But we love Upstream's DAO tooling, and that's on Ethereum. And we're doing our DAO and the whole Shells token ecosystem there. And that was just kind of, this is a better product. This is better long-term for the projects we want to get into and things like that. And it's not like we hate Solana. It's just, this is a better opportunity for this. This is a better opportunity for people to join our community without paying $300 in gas. So I think we're going to start to see that, and it's going to become more natural. And I think Chainlink's got a big place there.
Yeah, not a Chainlink user yet, but it's funny because when Adrian told me about this and I read up, I was like, I want to go meet these guys. He's like, well, do you just want to come talk? But it's the Oracle aspect of it, right? I come from companies, and these productized processes are what's needed, especially as you scale. So thinking about the products and the features and services they offer, I'm now thinking about, okay, as we have this transition of Web 2.5, where do they fit in? Because not everyone has the luxury of being natively Web3, nor do I think we have the right tools in natively Web3. Like I said, most of the tools we use are still Web 2. So as we think about productized services and processes, that's where actually you get scale, and hopefully it doesn't break at scale like Stepin.
I think for me, our founder he phrases Chainlink as infrastructure for Web3. And for me, there you go. And it's really more about what are people going to build with Chainlink, right? There's a lot of great projects. The ones that get me most excited are about the ones that are doing good for the world. There's projects like Arbol and Declimate that are using Chainlink weather feeds data to be able to allow, let's say, for example, a farmer to take out an insurance platform where if your plot of land is exposed to flood or drought, then you can be insured, which is something that you would never, ever see, especially in an underdeveloped country. So, right, it's not necessarily what is Chainlink's products doing, it's what are people using their products for. How about a round of applause for our panelists? Thank you so much. Everyone feel free to hang out. We have shirts. There's more food and drinks. I just want to mention that we'll be at Permissionless in a few weeks for another happy hour and meet up with TrueFi, Compound, and Aave focusing on DeFi. We'll all be around after the panel, which is about to end. I'm serious. If you want to come up to me, tell me what you want to hear at your next Miami meetup, topics, technical, not technical. I'm really open to any and all feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, and connect with all of us and each other for sure. Everyone should be talking to